Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be me telling you about all the essential affordable items that you need to start your baking business from home. So these are things that I can't live without, and they're also things that are affordable for someone that might not have very much money starting their business, because I definitely didn't. So these are some things that aren't necessarily branded, or they're cheaper brands that I would actually recommend because I found them to be really good items. So I've got some things in front of me which I'm dropping everywhere, but we're going to work through all of them. And I'm also going to be doing a little mini series, so if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and make sure you hit the bell. I'm going to be doing another video on things that I regret buying, and then I'm going to do a separate video on essentials that I can't live without. So these are going to be specific branded items, things like KitchenAid, Finch Bakery, things like that, which I can't live without. So I'm going to be telling you specific brands in that video, and then those are items that I've spent a bit more money on, so they might not be as affordable as these items that I'm going to be showing you today. So make sure you hit the bell to watch that video, and we're going to get right into it. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is a software. I thought I would do this first because all the other stuff is physical items. So one thing that I would really recommend, and it is affordable, is Microsoft Office. I use this so much if you're kind of techie and you like to keep spreadsheets and you want to keep logs of like orders and temperature checks and recipes. If you want to do your own business cards, I made my own little leaflets and also my own allergy stickers. So these aren't the actual tick boxes. I've got a actual disclaimer sticker that goes on the boxes, and then it's got my logo and it's got a bit of information about how to store the item that you're buying, so like a cake. And I made those myself using that software, so I think it is really handy. It's about £6 a month, but you can buy a yearly or just indefinite unlimited subscription, but it just depends on how long you want it. But I would definitely recommend Microsoft Office because I've found it so useful for starting out, especially in the first couple of months. You might not need it further on, but definitely when you're starting the business it's really useful. The next thing I'm going to recommend is a mixer. It doesn't matter what type, but you need one because you're not going to be able to make anything without it. So that can be anything from a stand mixer, which are a bit more expensive, then you've got hand mixers, and then you've also just got whisks. Like when I make brownies, I do it all by hand. I don't actually use a machine for that, so I use a standard whisk, and it is just a cheap one from eBay, but I would definitely recommend getting yourself that first. So it can be a stand mixer. So some examples, there's a couple on Amazon which have really good reviews. I think it's called the Orkma, and it's red. I don't know if they do any other colours, but that's the one that I've seen. I have a KitchenAid, so if you do have the money, then you might want to splash out a bit more on something a bit more expensive. And then a mid-range option, the Kenwood is meant to be very, very good. The K-Mix, everyone recommends it. Some people got it on Black Friday, and I actually want one myself. I want to have two mixers at some point when I get a bit busier, because it is nice to be able to either do two batches at once, or you can have your cake mix going and your buttercream at the same time if you're doing multiple layers and multiple cakes in one day. So it's always useful to have another mixer. So I'm definitely considering that. Then we have some items that I have in front of me, so I'm going to be going through these. I didn't want to bring my mixer into my room, so that's why we haven't got that. So one thing that you definitely need is a thermometer. So it doesn't matter whether it is like this or whether it is a stick thermometer, which you then put in and out of the fridge to check the temperature, but this one I leave in there at all times. So as long as you're able to check the temperature of your fridge, whether that is at a set time every day, so before and after baking, or whether it's one of these where it's continuous, it's left in there all day and you can check it at any time and it will be right. So you can also get the stick ones, which you need to put in there, leave for 5 to 10 minutes for it to adjust to the temperature, and then you can note it down. So these are about £3 on eBay, so cheap. I've got 3 of them. I've got 2 in the fridges and then 1 in a freezer that I use. Then the next thing is some reusable piping bags and some nozzles. So this is actually a set that I got with a turntable, super affordable on Amazon. You can get them on eBay as well. These reusable ones are very handy when you don't necessarily have the money to be buying disposable ones. I have disposable, and I put the icing in there and then I put it in here and cut the hole at the bottom. That's because I use various nozzles, so I don't want to be washing this bag every 5 minutes. So I put a disposable bag in there, but you can just use these bags straight away. Then these nozzles, they aren't branded, so they're a little bit smaller. Usually when you get branded ones, they are bigger nozzles in terms of the actual size here. But these are really good value for money. You get about 30 in here. I got another set which was, I think, 48 pieces. And you get these, which are to secure it onto your piping bag. So it's a very handy set and it's very affordable. I have 2 of these now, but I also have a various range of like Wilton nozzles, which are my go-to, but they are a bit more expensive at about £6 per nozzle. So it just depends whether you want to spend that kind of money. The next thing is a turntable. So I currently have 2. I got a new one for Christmas, but this one is the one that I got when I started my business. So it is a plastic turntable. It's got a non-slip edge around the bottom here, and it's just white, and it's not as smooth as my silver one, but obviously if you're just starting out, they are very, very handy. This came in a set which was, I think, £18, but you can buy this on its own for about £5 to £10. Very, very reasonable. I got a new one, which is the metal one. Again, if you have the money, they are between £25 and £35, and it is an investment. They don't usually break. This one still hasn't, and I've had it almost 8 months now. So the metal one hopefully will be my new go-to, and then I can always use this one as a backup if I have multiple cakes. So the next thing is things to seal your like leftover cake mixes or brownies, anything like that, icing. So I would definitely recommend cling film, foil, and then also parchment paper or baking paper, depending on where you're based. They're called different things. So I use cling film to cover anything, whether it's bowls or just like baking trays with like brownies and things in. I always use cling film because it's just the easiest thing to use, and I also use this when I'm covering cakes. So I use cake boxes, but I don't put the lid on the box. I staple it to the back like this, and then I put cling film over the cake box, so it means that the cake is fully on show. I'll try and include a photo so that you understand what I mean, but I use cling film for that as well, so it's very, very handy, and it means that when you drop it off, the customer can see what the cake looks like, which is always nice. Foil is just for various things, whether it's covering trays and like brownies separately, or if it's used in a tray to avoid anything dripping into the actual tray and like disrupting the other stuff in there. It's got a variety of uses. And parchment paper I use to line all tins and like baking trays, anything like that. I have pre-cut circles which you can buy on eBay, and they're just parchment circles, and you choose the size. So I've got 6 inch, 8 inch and 10, which is the size of the cake drum, and you just put it straight in there and you're ready to go. All you need to do is add a bit of butter to line the tin, but it's already cut, so it's so much easier. And then I also have a roll which I use for brownie trays, and it's just an industrial roll, so it's about like 20 meters of baking paper, so it's so handy. And again, that was on Amazon. I think it was about £7. Really, really reasonable. Then the next thing is an order log or book. So there's 2 options. I'm just going to grab. So I have this order book, but you can also use a spreadsheet version. I have both, just because I like to be over organised, but you can either get one of these. This was about £10 to £15 off Etsy. Again, really reasonable. It's got about 200 spaces because there's 4 to each double page. If I just turn it over, so there's 4 to each double page, so there's quite a lot of pages in there for orders. But yeah, if you wanted to do a cheaper option, then you might want to use a free trial, make a spreadsheet on Microsoft Word, and then you could either print it off or keep it as a digital log. Either is perfectly fine. Then we have scrapers. So I've got quite a few different options here and some spatulas. So this is it's a bit like watermarked because I don't really use it anymore. But this is I think it's Wilton scraper. So it's got a little handle in the middle for you to use, and it's got curved edges. So this is a affordable option to a straight scraper, as you can see, and it's nice and tall. I think it's about 8 or 9 inches. And I used to use this, and then now I've moved over to Finch Bakery. This is about £5 for the scraper. Finch Bakery are 12, and you also have to pay delivery, whereas you can use Amazon Prime with this. So that is a cheap option that I bought when I was first starting. Then this is part of a set. So these are some just pattern scrapers, various different patterns, and these are some standard ones which come with this set here. So it all comes together with the turntable. So like I say, it's a really good set and it saves you a bit of money. So those are some options if you wanted some patterned or like design scrapers. I'm not quite sure how people refer to them, but if you want any like striped, zigzagged, bubble scrapers, then you could use those. Then these are from B&M. I absolutely love these. So they are silicone scrapers, so they bend nice and easily, they get everything out the bowl. I am looking into maybe sourcing my own and selling it as like merch. So I wanted to design my own kitchenware basically. So I am going to be looking into getting some ones that are all silicone, so that doesn't have the option to come off like that, because occasionally, this happens with every scraper, they do come off, because when you're mixing it can come off like that, and then the end of your spatula is in your bowl. But these ones are a lot better than the other cheaper ones, so like the ones that are plastic at the bottom here, because it's a lot more slippery. The wood adds a bit more grip, so your buttercream has to be really, really stiff for it to come off of this. But these come in a set for £3, and you get a greaser, which is the brush that you grease tins with, and then you get this scraper, and you also get a spoon. So it's the same silicone like this, but it's just a spoon that you can use. So these were 2 separate sets, and this was B&M. So this is another thing that came with the turntable, my new metal one. So these are some spatulas. So as you can see, one is angled and then one is just straight. So these are really handy to have if you don't have a scraper like this, because you can just use it like that and go around the cake. So you can use these if you don't have a scraper. They're just a little bit more difficult because of the angle that you'll be scraping at, more like downwards rather than round the cake. It does make it a bit difficult to get them smooth, but they're also very good for spooning out icing into piping bags. I use it to smooth the buttercream that you put in between each cake layer, because they are very useful for that, and they're nice because you can put them in hot water if you wanted to use it to smooth your icing, because they are metal. That's also why the metal scrapers are good, because if you are having trouble smoothing your buttercream, you can put this in hot water, dab it dry so it's not like got wet particles on it, and then you can scrape your cake, and because this is warm it will slightly smooth the icing, so it works really well. The next thing is trays. So I haven't got any in here with me, but there are a variety of baking trays. You want the ones that are between 3 and 4 inches tall, so you can imagine it's about that, and it just means that when your cakes do rise, you'd rather have thicker layers, then you've got less filling. So I have between 3 and 4 layers in a cake, depending how tall they want it, and that means that I get enough space for quite a nice bit of filling, but I haven't got 1-inch slices, which means that you use a lot more filling, so that is more of a cost for you. And it also means that you need a lot of trays, because you've got to remember all of these trays are separate items to go in the oven. So I can fit 4 trays in my oven. So if I'm doing 1-inch layers, then that means that it's going to take me a lot longer to bake a cake. Whereas if I'm doing 4-inch layers, I can do it in 2 tins, and then I've got another 2 tins to go in at the same time. So it's all done within 25 minutes, rather than having one batch going for half an hour, then having to cool, then another batch going in for another half an hour. It just takes a lot more time when you're doing smaller layers. So I definitely recommend having bigger layers in your cake, and then you can use less tins. I have a variety of brownie tins. I have one so that I can do a half batch of 4 brownies, and then I have a bigger batch which is 8. I would recommend doing that, because if someone orders less brownies, you don't want to be making a full batch of 8 and they only want like 3 or 4, because there's going to be so much wastage. So again, I'd recommend getting some smaller tins as well. This doesn't work with cupcakes because cupcakes you can just put less cases in that same tin, and I just make sure that they're in the middle of the tray, otherwise you just fill it full. So for cupcakes you don't have to worry about that. Then the next thing is mats. So I've got these mats here which are really, really good. These are definitely going to be in my can't live without video because I use them all the time. So these are some flexible mats. So as you can see, they are very thin plastic and they're nice and big, and they're perfect for brownies. So I put my brownies on here and then I cut them, and then you can also wrap this in cling film very easily. It's much easier than a tray that can sometimes slide around. It is more non-slip, I would say, so when you have your brownies on here they don't slide around as much as, say, like a chopping board. You also don't get indentations where you cut. So I chop all my brownies on here, and as you can see, there's, you know how you look at a chopping board and it's got indentations where you're using a knife? Well, bacteria can get in there and then it can then contaminate your food, whereas these are a lot easier to clean. There's no dirt getting into any like indentations in there. So they also work really well for fondant because, as you can see, because they bend, if you have a piece of fondant on there and you want to get it off, I also use icing sugar underneath all of mine so they don't completely stick, but it means that you don't damage it so much because you can just peel it off of the mat rather than it being a completely flat surface which you then have to try and get something underneath. So they work really well for fondant as well as brownies. They're the main things that I use them for. And the last couple of things that I have, I wanted to show you my disposable piping bags that I would recommend. These are about £3 off eBay and you get 100. So these are the smaller ones. They also do bigger versions which come to about here, and these ones are for chocolate because as soon as chocolate goes hard it's really difficult to get it out of a piping bag unless you want to try and melt it. So, and it's just time consuming. So if you're trying to put chocolate in here and then get it out, it can just ruin the piping bag. So I like to use disposable ones for chocolate. And then, like I said, I put the buttercream in a bigger bag because that means that it then doesn't dirty the reusable bag. The last thing I'd recommend is this cloth. So I'm not quite sure what it's called. I think it's like a microfiber cloth. So as you can see, it's nice and big. This came in a set of 5. And you can use it wet or dry, which is so handy. So I wet these and then I use it to wipe the counters, and because it's kind of like a towel, it dries as it's wiping, so it's really, really easy to use. It's so much like cleaner finish than a cloth, and I find that they are just so nice, and it just doesn't hold the dirt because it's completely flat. And I don't use them if I am using any colours. I use a dirty cloth to wipe the colour off, and then I go over it with disinfectant and this. So obviously you need to have your disinfectant complying to the British standards. I will put them on the screen below on the actual numbers, but if you check the back of your bottle you'll be able to see whether it complies. Most, like Tesco's all own brands, usually comply with the British standards. Aldi own, it's called Astonish, that's what I use, and it's just easy to find if you don't try and go for things like Dettol. I know Dettol is not approved, so you can't use that for work surfaces that have food on, but the Astonish is really, really good. And yeah, these are from Tesco's, I believe. They also do them in the range. And yeah, they're just super easy. And then if you wanted to dry a surface, if you were using another form of cloth, then you can just wipe with this and it can be dry or wet and it will clean it right off. It's really, really easy. So that's the last thing I was going to show you today. I hope this was helpful for those of you starting out. I've been requested it a few times now because people want to see my essential items that I think are good for when you're first starting out, and this was that. A lot of these items I still use on a daily basis, so they are so useful and they are good quality because I still use them almost 8 months on. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and make sure you hit the bell and subscribe if you want to see the rest of the series where I do my can't live without items, which are all branded items, things like KitchenAid and Finch Bakery, Kenwood, anything like that. And then I'm also doing the things that I regretted buying, because there are quite a few things that I keep hold of and I have in my kitchen but I never use because I used them once and I realised that they were either overhyped or I just didn't need them. So I'm going to be doing another video on that as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Bye!